everyone. I'm super excited to be here with these two beautiful ladies. We're doing another WoUHE panel, which ideally we're gonna have one every month, and really glad we could have these two women here today. My name is Madeline Gilbert. I'm the UHE coordinator, like a player support coordinator, and then for WoUHE, I'm the initiative coordinator. So I'm just like a bunch of coordinators. But I'm super excited to introduce you two. If you want to start with maybe a bit about where you're from and what you currently do as a job, if we want to start with Sarah.
Cool. Um, uh, I'm from LA right now. Where we both work at Blizzard. I'm the supervising producer for the Overwatch League broadcast. So basically, what that means is that there's 5 or 6 different teams that work to support the different areas of the broadcast, and then I make sure that everyone's working together. And at the end of the day, we have a product that goes to air that we're all really proud of. All
Awesome.
right, Jess.
Hello,
Yeah.
everybody. I'm Jess. I am the observer manager for the Overwatch League. I'm originally from New York, but like Sarah said, I'm back out here in LA working at Blizzard. And what an observer manager does is basically I'm in charge of a very talented team of individuals that operate our in game cameras within the game. So basically, all of the player POVs, all the free cam shots, all the really cool cinematic replay things that we do all come from my insanely talented team. And I just kind of help support them. I also do replay producing during the actual broadcast. And that's
So,
it.
thank you guys. And I know most people are familiar with Blizzard and the Overwatch League as a corporation and business, but are you guys mainly streaming Overwatch specifically, the game?
Yeah, I'll speak for both of us. We're both
Mm.
Overwatch League only.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I thought. It gets me so confused because a lot of companies nowadays are like they own multiple different games, and then you have people that kind of jump around from each game and they do different things. But you guys are just sticking with Overwatch, which is
yeah,
super cool.
we've both done other stuff, but like right
Mhm.
now, the way that we're set up is we're just with the league.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's all Overwatch all the time.
Ye-
24/7.
So much Overwatch all the time, as much Overwatch as we can get.
And I don't know if everyone notices, but I decided to wear my UH hoodie, and then
Oh,
these two have the like awesome Overwatch merch that I want to buy now, grand finals, and the like awesome logo. So I wanted to point that out because I think it's
thank you.
cool.
We
We
planned this ahead
coordinated.
of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were like, we
No,
can't wear
it's
the
sweet.
matching hoodies.
It's so funny
You
because like
can.
when you work on it and stuff, everybody ends up having the same outfit. So
Yep.
Mm-mm-mm.
like I've
Mhm.
gone out to dinner and we've all been wearing the same thing, and it's like, guys,
So
Guys, we gotta
funny.
want
stop
a
doing
different
this.
sweatshirt.
We
Yeah,
know
and
we
then
love it here. Everyone owns the same merch. Everyone has the same hoodie. We're
mm-mm-mm.
like, oh no, guys.
We need some variety or
We gotta
something.
switch it up here.
No, that's so funny. I like that though. It creates like kind of more of a community, and I think it's what I like about esports is everyone just kind of like
Totally.
matches the vibe, which is great.
Absolutely.
Um, Today we're gonna similar things. So WUI is basically an initiative that I started to support women in our program to kind of help give them opportunities to do things like this, which is a really cool panel that I'm like shaking from excitement about because I'm just like, ooh. But different kind of events and stuff like that just to kind of talk about things and get the word out there about what people do and stuff like that. So everyone is welcome here. We are going to touch on subjects that are more catered towards being a woman in the industry and like specifically about being a woman in the industry, but there will be some like more general things. And I hope everyone can like take something away or whatever, because I know a lot of us are in college, and I think this is the best time to kind of broaden your perspective, to hear from different people, and to get different views and stuff like that. So I'm excited to start. I think the first question that we'll start with is how would you introduce yourself to the general public, assuming that they don't know of esports? So esports is something like I personally have had interactions with like my teachers and fellow advisors or stuff like that where they were just like, "Can you explain this to me?" And I sit there and I go, "I'm not sure I can." But it might be easier for you guys since broadcasting does have some parallels with the real world, the real world.
Totally.
But I don't know, Jessica, if you wanted to start with
Sure.
that.
So it's kind of funny because when I first got this job, I remember talking to both of my parents who have always been super supportive about everything I do. But I was like, yeah, guys, like I'm going to be an observer at the Overwatch League. They were like, "What are you talking about? What does any of what you just said mean?" And so they kind of knew a little bit about what Overwatch was. They know that I was really into video games. So I kind of had to explain it to them. Like, I basically am the camera person for a sports broadcast.
Mhm,
So I operate a camera for the if it's like basketball or football, I'm the person that is doing the camera. The only difference with my job is I am in the actual game. And then I have my dad being like, "Oh, so you're playing the game?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not playing the game. I am not that good at the game. Very no, I cannot be as good as some of these players are." So the best way I usually go about it is like if I'm, telling somebody about my job who doesn't know me at all, is like I work on a video game tournament broadcast. And more specifically, my job is sometimes I'm a producer. I help produce video content for the show, or sometimes I am, managing a team of camera operators who operate the in-game camera tool for a game. And that's as best as I can get with my kind of complicated
awesome.
job.
Yeah, I feel like I've had the same experience with observers because first coming into the esports world, I was like, what is like this is actually a job? And
Oh
then
yeah.
I like switched and I was like, this is so impressive because people are just like, I don't know. I think my experience is mainly with Valorant because that's what I
Hmm.
played the most. But seeing people like use cameras in Valorant is really confusing to me. And
Oh,
like the
totally.
way they time it and the way they go through it and stuff like that. So I think that
Yeah,
was a really good
observing.
explanation.
Yeah, observing is one of those things that's so complicated to explain, but once you kind of like show like this is how people see the game is
Mm,
with a series of people who know the ins and outs of the game, they'll go, "Oh, makes sense."
yeah. No, exactly. And Sarah, did you also tell your parents specifically or like have to explain it to them or do you have a similar in that kind of sense?
A little bit. So, my parents totally understood like the broadcast part of it.
Mm,
They understood the events part to like an extent, right? Like everyone's watched TV and most people have gone out and gone to a sporting event or a concert. So like
mm,
that part totally made sense. But what didn't make sense was, well, I make a TV show for a video game. And they were like, hmm. And they're like, and people watch that? And I'm
yeah,
like,
people want to?
yeah, people watch. Turns out people watch football who don't play football because they enjoy it. And that's kind of like definitely been my like when I get like, oh, well, who even watches that? Like, how do you make money doing that? And it's like, well, you watch football every Sunday. So I'm a little confused because it's the same.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest thing is like explaining, like Jess said, like we're making the thing that you watch on TV for another sport or
Mm,
another thing, right? Like if you watch American Idol, it's the same thing as like you're making a TV show for something that's happening. And that's kind of where it always made sense when we were in person. But then once we went online, it got way more confusing because they were like,
right.
well, where are the players? Well, what do you mean?
Mm,
How do you get the game? And then you get like all these weird follow-up questions. But for the most part, I always say, like I help produce a show about not about, but like kind of about people playing video games competitively, right?
mm,
Because if like for Watchpoint, we're breaking down the plays. It's about people playing the video game. It's about the
mm,
people who play the game. And I think that that definitely makes it click a little more. Or like
yeah.
it's like Sports Center, but like
Yeah.
video.
You
When
always
you
have to
know
phrase it
something,
into
they
a lens.
understand.
Yeah, you have to phrase it in a lens of like, here, like, that thing, like the Super Bowl or like all those other big sporting events, like those
Mm,
things, like how that gets put on TV, we do that.
right. It's interesting because we can compare it to sports really easily, and it's it's hard for me sometimes to understand how people don't like click with that, but I
Sure.
get it because it's kind of new and like people just don't understand. But what kind of so now you guys are working in esports, but did you have prior kind of like either observing or um like I'm blanking so hard. Observing
I had
or
previous event experience.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
totally.
We got you
That
covered.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you have experience in that wasn't esports, but was like a similar kind of job that you could like compare it to, if that makes sense?
I can speak to this first. So,
Mm,
when I was in college, which was a couple years ago now, we had a conversation about this. How long ago I was in college? I don't want to talk about it. Uh, but when I was in
never
college,
happened.
never happened. I was a theater major, and I was looking for a part-time job on campus, and something that popped up was this broadcast job in our school's athletics department. Um, and if anyone knows me, I am not a very athletic person. I was in theater and I liked video games, and I fit all of those stereotypes. So when I saw this job pop up, I was like, I don't really know, like maybe it's something I'd be into. I had some experience in like video editing and things like that, and it seems to kind of correlate with this job listing. So I was like, let me give it a try. So I jumped in on that. I loved it. I loved everything about working in a broadcast. I knew nothing about really basketball or soccer or any of those things. But when I worked all the basketball games, I was in charge of the replays specifically for basketball and for broadcast. So I had that kind of experience already with working on like a broadcast specifically doing replays. And then after I graduated, I managed a tier three Overwatch team for over a year. So I spectated all of their scrims. I recorded all of their scrims. This is way before replay codes existed. I, would make video content for them and things like that. So all of that experience that I had leading up to when I saw this esports observer position posted at Blizzard, I took all of that, applied for the job, and it kind of just worked out that way.
That's awesome. What
Mhm.
were the you said basketball or it was
Basketball,
basketball?
yeah, so I did mainly basketball. I did replay mainly for basketball, and then I also
Right.
worked a football broadcast where I was like the like in-game advertisement person.
I
I did
didn't
like
know any of
producing
it.
for that. It was a lot. I don't know what I was looking at. I would label
Mm.
my basketball replays as I think this was a good basket, and my director would be like, "Jessica, what are you doing? Please label them something. I don't know what any of this
Was
means."
this 3 points or 2? I don't remember.
I don't know. The room would start freaking out because I worked with all athletes, so the room would be like, "Yeah," and I was like,
Get it. Get it on
That was
camera.
"I, I'm gonna get it. I don't know
It's
what it
that
is,
one.
but I have it. If you guys want it for something." So it was a lot of different university sports, but it was mainly basketball.
Right. That was how I did cheerleading during high school for the last
Mhm.
2 years, and that's exactly how I felt during basketball games specifically. Because football, somehow I just got it, like, I understood what was happening,
Mhm.
but basketball, I never put an effort into
There's so many
learning.
points.
There's
There's so
so
many
many
points and
things.
things.
Oh, wow.
I'm
And I
trying my
try and
best.
learn, but so I don't know. It's kind of silly, but just when the crowd yelled, I would start cheering as well, and that's how we kind of knew.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is funny, but that's okay.
I mean, that's kinda how all of sporting is, right? Like, you're only
hmm
excited because everyone else.
Yeah.
It's a big like group mentality thing, and
Totally.
I enjoy watching some sports, but it's kind of interesting how like how people interact in it and how
Mhm.
stadiums react and stuff like that. But then again, we can compare that a little to esports because now we have like, especially after COVID, we have big live events that have
Yep.
a ton of people in a stadium basically watching them,
Mhm.
which there's something, even though I'm very familiar with the environment of like gamers at a PC and stuff like that. Seeing it on like live streamed and like television or stuff like that, like thousands of people watching, like a bunch of players sit at a computer is so funny to me, and I don't it's something about like
Yep.
like I get it being in person, but that's the part that really gets me because it's like you're watching in person to watch a screen and then you get to see the players, which is
Yep.
cool. It's just kind of funny to me.
I think at that point you're like there to feel it, right? Like we were
Yeah,
talking,
the
like you get
atmosphere.
so excited around everybody, and like I think that's the biggest. I know that
Right.
when we were working from home, it was hard to be really excited about some of the really good matches. And like,
Right.
I worked some really, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, whatever. But like in person with like six other people, and it didn't matter who
And
won. I
feeling
was like,
it.
get him, and I
Yep.
just like
Yeah.
popped off, and I was like, oh, who is she? I don't know her.
Mm. That
Well,
actually made
especially
me
like,
think of oh,
oh,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead,
No, no,
Madeline.
no, you first.
I was just gonna say
You're
that's
the
like kind
guest.
of what it's kind of what like grand finals was, right? Like
Yeah.
finally having all those people in person and feeling everybody being so excited about finals and everything was like, oh, it was like such a breath of fresh air to have that moment and just see everyone be like, this is amazing. This is exactly what we wanted. This is what we've been missing all these years.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's it. It also pinged to me because I'm kind of interested to know what did your jobs look like during COVID? And I'm not sure if you were still working with um or you were at Blizzard at the time, but what did that look like for you guys?
we both were.
Mm.
Um, it it was a lot of like Zoom calls to like make sure like
Oh.
you were like, hey, we're all good, right? Like we're having a
Mm.
great time, and we would get together to like have cooler talk, to like
Mm.
socialize. But like the work thing was hard, it was hard to kind of, for me at least, it was hard sometimes to stay engaged when everyone was remote,
Mm.
but it was hard because you knew what you were missing. You knew that like if we were all sitting in the control room together, that everyone would have like totally jumped up for that play, or we would have like laughed about something that someone said on stream and just like really joked and palled around.
Mm.
And I think from work from home, you were in a situation where you were pushed to talk,
Mm.
right? So in order to say you had to unmute. And so like people would kind of joke around, and you knew people were like laughing and having a good time, but you didn't hear it.
Right.
And I think that was the hardest part, was that like you just didn't hear some like I knew I was funny, but no one laughed. And I'm like, oh, was I not?
Yeah.
And then I
Oh
started to like
no.
really kind of like second guess, like, Was that good? Was that not good?
Yeah.
But the
Because we're
work was the same,
human. Mm.
like the work didn't change. It just changed how I felt about it.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting because we're so used to like a lot of my job is remote. I could do it
Mhm.
anywhere. But
Mhm.
I come in to the office because I just like being around people and I like having one-off like random conversations with people that I probably wouldn't have if I was just online. And we
Yeah.
get to have better conversations and you have different interactions and I find that that's really important to just kind of like giving you a little more joy, but also like kind of having more purpose in your job and feeling better about things.
You learn a
Mm.
lot more too. You
Yeah.
see what other
Absolutely.
people do, you see the effort that other people put into their jobs, and you're like, yeah, I want to learn how to do that. How come I don't
Hmm.
know how this works?
It's
And there's just a
inspirational,
lot
yeah.
more organic, like information share, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
I think too, like with our team, the work itself didn't really change that much. We were able to the observing team was able to almost flawlessly adapt into like an online environment, but having that LAN environment, like seeing like it used to be me sitting in a line of observers and I'd look down the line and see these like all of my team like into the game, engaged in the game. Like if something crazy happened, they'd like tap my shoulder and be like, "Hey, Jess, grab that replay. Like that was insane. You need to get that. Like
Mm.
pitch it to somebody." But now it's exactly like Sarah says. You have to like find the person you're trying to whisper to and like ping them in the middle of a match, and like you're distracted by other things. And then I remember one thing that was like, oh man, this kind of sucks, was at the end of Mid-Season Madness last year. It ended, and it felt like such a good match. Like it was so hyped. Everyone had like we had such a great show that day. The broadcast was great. I like hyped up the observers right before we got off the call. Everyone was so excited, and then that was it. And then I disconnected off
Yeah.
my call, and I was in this room, and I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like I felt like it was such a good show. I remember we were all like half of us were emotional. I was crying because I was like, this was so great. You guys are awesome. And then
Mm.
it just, kind of fell flat after, and that felt a little, disheartening, kind of like what Sarah said. It's just like you miss that vibe, you miss that ability to collaborate and work with other people that are with you. And that's why, the most recent events that we had were like it was so hyped to like just see everybody again and just feel that energy again.
Right. That's really interesting. I think it's like I hate bringing up COVID and the pandemic and stuff like that because it's gotten really repetitive and it just kind of gets depressing. And especially since it's been like quite a few years now since that happened and started, but I still think it's important to kind of acknowledge that and what happened. And I'm so grateful that we are back in person and we can have live events again and we can do all this stuff again and you can see people and like see how they react to things and be able to work with them. And so I'm happy for you guys that you're kind of like back to normal.
Yeah, it was one of the first event that I got to do with players and people was
Mhm.
when I went to Hawaii. And so working,
Seriously?
yeah, totally, like working with you guys, all of the people of your program, that was like my first like we're back in it. And
Yeah.
it was so nice. And it was really
Mm.
good to get back in it in a situation where like everyone who was there, we're here because we care. And
Mhm.
that was really cool to like get to be back with coworkers and then like working with the students, which I it felt weird to be like, you're a student, but like it was people who just like wanted to help and like
Mhm.
it didn't ever feel like we're here to teach. It felt like we're here to do this with you. And that
Mhm.
was like it felt so good. And I mean, it was also Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah, if people don't know what she's talking about, we had Overwatch League come and I wasn't actually there at the time. This happened twice for 2 summers, this past summer, but the one before is what she's talking about, I think.
No, I'm
Oh,
talking
the
about
one
this
just
summer.
now. Okay.
I didn't even get to go to the one before. I
No.
didn't make
Okay,
the
I didn't know
fly
that.
away. Yeah. No, it was
Yeah.
like this last year.
Oh, great. So I may have actually like walked by you without knowing because I was a little around, but
Yeah.
we were very grateful to have Overwatch League come visit UHE and also host their tournament in our iLab arena. And this happened twice, and it has given us a lot of recognition. We're super grateful for everything because also gave us a lot of opportunities to give to our students to help out and stuff like that, and see like the professionals doing their job and being all cool. um,
It was a
so,
big recharge for us too. Like
yeah,
it was one of like you kind of just like felt the heart of everything again after
that's
like
fantastic.
being home. So it was really awesome.
Yeah, because it felt more. I saw pictures of the one that happened before when it was more in COVID. Kind of, there's a lot of testing going on. There was all the precautions, and the most recent one definitely felt more like normal, more human. Like we were still doing a lot of like sanitizing, wearing masks, like
It
all of
was a
the.
lot more collaborative.
Yeah, it was a lot more collaborative and it was just it was cool. I just remember the iLab being completely rearranged and like everything being set up completely differently and I walked in and I was like, "Cool." And then I was like, "What is happening here?" But it was a really cool experience. And hopefully Jessica can come to Hawaii soon as
I
well.
would love to
Because we
come
would
to
love to have
Hawaii soon.
you.
That would be
Yeah. I don't
amazing.
even care if you're just doing your job just over here. Like, you don't have to come formally.
Come
Both of
hang
you can just,
out.
like, work here.
We'll just work from home from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Perfect. Work
Who's
from
yeah.
Hawaii.
I'll get that
I
Why
don't
approved.
see the
wouldn't
problem.
you?
No problem.
Perfect. Yeah.
No, that's great. Okay. I think I do want to get into a little more about like specifically us being women in the esports space. So I'm gonna pull one of my questions. I should have decided this beforehand.
Totally good.
This is my brain.
I get it.
Oh, we can talk about because we brought this up a little before, but basically how video games were marketed towards us, and like if it was marketed mainly towards men or if it was marketed towards women as a kid and then up to now. And I know you guys had a really clear like answer for especially when you were growing up. So if you want to like talk a little bit about that and what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, yeah. So I know we talked about this offline, but I remember growing up like um a while ago. When I was growing up, a lot of toys were very much so, this is a boy's toy. This is a girl's toy. They don't interact ever. Do not buy a girl a boy toy, do not buy a boy a girl toy. And that's kind of how it was when I was growing up. And then that when video games started becoming more and more popular, it also got marketed that way as well. Like I know going way back, like with just like basic like Mario and like things like that, it wasn't really marketed to a specific gender. But then, other games came out where it's like wartime shooter games, like this is only for boys, only boys play these games, or space shooter games, this is only for boys, boys should only play these games. And then for girls, it was like, here is the doll dress up simulator, and here's the fun cute animal game simulator. And there's a very like clear divide. And then like I think for me, at least personally, like Pokemon was like one of those things that came out and was like, oh, anybody could play this game. Like this seems like it's a game that was marketed for everybody. If you guys, I'd like Pokemon, I don't, please ignore all the Pikachus. So like it's one of those things where, that was Pokemon kind of like made me go, oh wait, video games are for everybody. Like, why are they so distinctly marketed towards one gender or the other or anything like that? So I think, getting to a point now, we've kind of veered away from that. And Overwatch came out a couple of years ago, and I had never touched an FPS shooter. I was like, I'm bad at it. I shouldn't play it. That's not for me. Like, and that was purely like, I just never tried them because I never thought they were marketed towards me. But then Overwatch came out, and I remember seeing Tracer, Diva, Farah, and I was like, who are these people? These I, these could be me. Like I could see myself in this game. Like there's women characters in this game, like someone I can relate to. And I think growing up, we didn't really have a lot of that. That wasn't really a thing. So seeing more representation in video games across the board, which we see in so many titles, so many more of like the major titles, like across every different type of genre of game, across every different type of like popular Twitch streamer, like all of those games have like so much more visual representation for different marginalized gendered groups. And I think if we keep making strides towards that, we're going to see a lot more, women playing games, women competing in games. It's just when we were
Mhm.
growing up, it was so closed off. And if you were a girl playing an FPS shooter, like, who were you? So
Yeah.
hopefully we can veer away from that.
No, I completely agree because I had a similar experience growing up. And I grew up in the UK, so it was
Mm,
also a different kind of like country, but I think both the UK and America had similar kind of like marketing towards video games. And it was just like no girlfriend that I had played video games. I think
Yeah.
the only thing was Minecraft, and
yeah.
one other girl I knew played Minecraft that I was friends with, and that was it. And then I had another girlfriend and who played Skyrim, and that was it.
Yep.
But the only reason I think I really got into games and I knew about games was because of my brother, which I've talked a little bit about before, but I don't think without him, like, he was my advertisement for games.
Totally.
And
My
if I
husband
didn't
got
have
the
him,
games.
yeah, like I would never really have known because it wasn't for me. It wasn't targeted for me or towards me, and it wasn't like socially acceptable to as well. And even my parents kind of fed into that, though they're pretty like accepting of a lot of things and liberal, but they really were like, "Oh, you," even when I was older, they were like, "Oh, you can't play like Halo. That's too violent." But then my brother was playing it when he was like 10 and I
Yep.
was like 15. So I was like, what is the difference between
Absolutely.
yeah, and why is there a difference? Why does it matter if I'm playing like a more violent game? Though there's some like arguments for violent games anyway, but
Mhm.
it was really interesting growing up in that kind of environment.
It was a lot of like, why would you want to play that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like,
Mhm.
Which I was like, "What?"
well, because I love Indiana Jones and I want to like be cool like that.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
the interest just wasn't understood, I don't think. And
Mhm.
I think now a lot more people are like, yeah, whatever it is, it's
Right.
but
Even for things like I remember vividly like getting bullied when I was like in 4th grade because I was into Yu-Gi-Oh. Like
Mm,
it was just a lot of things like, anime or video games or anything like that was seen as like boys only.
mm.
And like the only thing that I really love Sailor Moon. So like if I liked anything that wasn't Sailor Moon, like no, like you're labeled as like this is dated, but like tomboy. Like I was constantly labeled as a
Yeah.
tomboy and like I would feed into that
Same.
stereotype. Yeah, like I would be like, I hate pink. Look at me now.
You lived my life.
Yeah, it's like I didn't like I hated pink. I if I'm gonna like video games and things like that, like and then this like
Yeah.
preconceived notion of who I should be started to take over what my personality was. And who knows how like different of a person I would have been if, I had like a different sense of like what I can and can't play. Like I said, earlier,
Right.
thankfully all of my friends, all my family have always been super supportive. There was the occasional bullies here and there, but nothing I couldn't really ever handle. Um, but marketing for things sometimes is just it hits you a certain way, and that kind
Mm.
of affects how you are. So
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think something you brought up before about how seeing like women characters in Overwatch, and I think specifically, though they do wear cool outfits and they are shaped like a certain way, they're not overly sexualized. And I don't think they're like when I think of women in video games when I'm growing up, I could see that they were catered to men. They had
yeah.
unrealistic body proportions. They were wearing kind of unrealistic outfits for the time. It was just very like the only thing that I can think of is like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. And that's
oh,
a really fun game, but it really was marketed towards men. Whereas nowadays we kind of see like a lot of the women in Overwatch are more kind of like badass looking or like
Mhm.
they didn't
cooler. Yeah.
now it's like, oh, she's wearing pants. That's cool. Like it's
Yeah. You're like,
different.
"I wear
So
pants
much
too."
different. Exactly. I
Yeah.
exclusively wear pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, you're exactly right, Madeline. Like I vividly remember like every single like fighting game that like came out like in the early 2000s was all like, super super like underdressed women characters that are fighting, and then like all the men are like these buff decked out guys, and then like all the women are these like skinny
Everyone was wearing
skinny
swimsuits.
people. Everyone was wearing swimsuits. There was always like a swimsuit option like outfit available, and
Yep.
like now we're getting away from that. I think most people are starting to realize that in order for like to spread out and have more people want to play your game, have more people
Mm,
feel like they connect to these characters, you have to make them real. um
yeah.
which is again, like Overwatch for me was the thing that was like, oh my god, like games can do this, games have done this, like, and then I was in, like I was hooked ever since.
Mm. No, that was really interesting, and it's just kind of cool to see the differences and how far we've come, though I'll always say for kind of anything to do with women, there's always further we should go, and
Absolutely.
we should always have, like, better standards and stuff like that, but I'm just happy that there has been progression and also a lot more women in gaming, which is really
Totally.
cool because, like you said, when growing up, Jessica, like I labeled myself as a tomboy because I felt like I had to, because I felt like I to be allowed to play these games, to be allowed to act this way, I had to only be friends with guys and only wear like dark and blue was my favorite color and
Yep.
I hated pink, which is exactly what you said, but
Yeah.
was also how I felt too, which is
Mhm.
crazy. But probably a lot of other people have felt that way as well, to feel like they could fit in. Otherwise, you kind of get like outcasted a little bit and you just want to do what you like to do. I just think
Mhm.
that sucks cuz now I'm at an age where like I like pink.
Mhm.
And I
It's
like kind of like yeah.
specifically glitter pink.
Yes.
Yeah. Pink is a cool color. I don't know why I was like so bashed on when I was younger.
Mhm.
But and I feel like I can embrace both sides of myself and my identity. And then it's just nicer to be able to see more women in games that do kind of represent myself. And
Yeah.
more
Absolutely.
companies are kind of like, oh, maybe we should target more women. Because, yeah, you'll make more money. Like, I don't know what is hard to think about that.
Like
If you
50%
get
more
more
people.
people. Yeah. Like, I don't know why they didn't do it before.
Stuck in their old ways.
It's
Yeah.
hard too, especially like growing up feeling that way about yourself,
Mm,
then like coming into like your own personality as an adult, you're like, do I like this? Do I not?
mm,
You
Mhm.
know, the majority of my friends growing up were men. Now, like as an adult, the majority of them are women. And I'm like, this is what I was missing out on? This is awesome. And you question that level of like femininity because you couldn't fit in any space when you were
mm,
like, when I was in high school, it was like, oh, well, if you're not going out and getting your nails done with all your girlfriends, like, what are you doing?
mm.
And it's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
It's not fun
Yeah.
for me. But now it's like, I want to do that, but also like, I can game on the weekend. I can, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an interesting thing to talk about just because of how much it's changed and I don't think a lot of us realize it and particularly like myself, I didn't realize it until I wrote these questions and then I was like thinking about them going like, yeah, what did that even mean or what did that even look like for me? Especially cuz England specifically just in the culture is, in my opinion, a lot more sexist. And there is very strict definitions of what are boy things and what are girl things. So I liked playing soccer, but soccer was a really big guy thing, like football is here. And so me playing soccer at like during break time or stuff like that made me very outcasted, and that kind of helped feed into this whole other I have to be a tomboy to do these specific things because it kind of went all across the board. It wasn't just video games. And that
Totally.
was interesting growing up there and comparing it to what some of me and my friends have talked about growing up here or just in the US, and how that was kind of like different in different ways because obviously every culture, every country has different kind of things or
Yeah,
like
you're made to think you don't have anything in common with other women.
yeah.
And it's very,
Oh,
very confusing.
yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it's the kind of thing that's like, um there just because you like XYZ thing does not define whatever it is you are as a person. Like
Mm,
and I feel like so much of the time, like, we'll hear stories of like anybody like getting onto a microphone in a game and like being like, "Hey guys," and it's like they sound like a woman, therefore attack. And it's just
mm,
like, why? And then it's like I've seen a lot of people say like, well, like I try to like blend in and like be like one of the guys. And it's like, no, you shouldn't have to pretend to be anyone else that you aren't in order to get respect from anybody. So
mm,
that goes the same with like your likes and interests. Like, just because like for me personally, like I like pink, I like all this other stuff, but I'm also like I'm gaming, I talk like a gamer sometimes. I say words that my friends have no idea what I'm saying sometimes.
Okay. No, you're good. Welcome back, everyone. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties.
We are
The
back.
Glad we're
PC
back.
just
That was
decided to
really
like
speedy.
fully shut off, which is kind of funny, but that's okay.
It's okay. We are here. It is part of the job. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because we were literally just talking about how I think I can't remember if it was Sarah or Jessica, one of you brought up the story about the lights going off.
Oh
Oh,
my
Sarah.
God.
I
Yep.
think it was Sarah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like how you just have to keep going and you just whatever happens, a stream will go out, the broadcast will go out, which is is just kind of like I don't know, it's good spirits. We keep pushing through.
Shout out to the crew behind the scenes who got the
Yeah,
stream
man.
back up.
Yeah,
Got up so fast.
Woo!
we love
Thanks,
Gun, our
guys.
broadcast director,
Thanks,
and
Jen.
Woo!
also I forgot to mention we do have some of my WoUHE board members are moderating the chat as well, which is I'm very happy that they can hang out if they have time because they're all busy people. But
Hello.
yeah,
Thank you.
so that's great. I honestly I'm completely off what we were talking about.
It's okay. I think that
Um,
threw us all off. We
yeah,
we were talking about marketing for games, and then we kind of got into like a little sidetrack of just
yeah,
treating people better. Just be kinder to people.
yeah. Let's end with that.
Yes.
Let's
Be
be kinder
nice
to
to people.
people.
That's it. That's all
Nice.
we're ever asking for.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So I think I'll because my brain's completely like frozen and
All
moved on
good.
from that. So we're gonna go to a different question. Um, I think okay. I kind of want to talk about how you, like what you guys think esports is gonna look like in the future, and kind of how you want things to be in the future. If there's any specific changes you want made, stuff like that. Like how, because I'm assuming you guys work in a good workplace and stuff like that, but just kind of overall in video games and just kind of like how people are treated, not even like personally, just that kind of area.
Sarah, do you
I'll
want to
go.
go or?
Um, we, I would really like to see esports be something that's like little, where like it's cool that kids do it
Mm,
because kids right now are so much better and they're so much like they're just different, and I think that if you're starting esports when you're younger, like it's just like more people, right? Like everybody did it. Like we were talking a little bit about soccer, like I knew a ton of people who played soccer when I was younger, and now like none of them. So like if everyone was playing esports as a kid, it would be much easier to explain all of the conversations we're having. And I don't think it would feel as revolutionary to see a female, you know. I
yeah.
think that just the exposure for me is something that I'd really like to see. Just like
Mm,
all all kinds of levels of esports competition. I think that's really like kind of our goal, right? In like making esports content is just showing it to the world and being
mm,
like, this is a thing that people do and it's so cool. And like it's viable, it's real. Like we all have jobs because of it. So
mm,
I think that for me, just seeing younger people in esports and like esports competition where like you have friends that have like a pickup basketball game that they play on every Wednesday, like having friends have a pickup Overwatch game that they play on,
mm.
and it just being something that's not like just for thing that like everyone kind of like I think is for me what I would.
I think to
Yeah.
like piggyback off that too. Yeah, like I think just making it more accessible, right? Like exactly to like what Sarah said, like it right now it's in such a state where esports seems like only a certain amount of people can get into it. That, there isn't like an easy path to get into it, right? And especially for marginalized gendered people, like it seems almost impossible, right? It seems like it is this massive hurdle to try and get through, to try and get to any kind of level of competition. So just more of it, really. I would like to just see more tournaments across the board. I would love to see, all different types of games get involved with it. That way, you see more people. You see more people get involved. You make people understand that esports isn't just like you go in, you play a video game, you go home, right? Like so many people, we were talking about this earlier, so many different people work behind the scenes in esports, and I don't really think people always necessarily know about these jobs or know about these roles or about all the ins and outs that go into it. But I think, like Sarah said, if we make it more accessible to younger people, to different people, anybody, if anybody feels like they can get involved with esports, they'll go, oh, I might not necessarily be the best Overwatch player, right? I might not necessarily be, the best aimer. I don't have like the skill set to do anything like that, but I'm also really good at observing. I'm really good at social media. I'm really good at graphic design, video editing. Oh, there's so many things that go into esports. So I think just making it more accessible and more of a thing where if we explain our jobs, people aren't like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's cool and what I'm really great for UHE being and having more university esports clubs or programs like what we are is it kind of helps people know more that they can turn their major that I don't know might be communications to business or even sciences and apply it to an esports job and kind of merge those two things that they're interested in. And it's just like I really enjoy working in the collegiate space as a college student, so I can personally relate to people here,
Hmm.
but
Totally.
also because it's like it's so cool. We can express things, we can do different kinds of things. We're not stuck on the same path, and we have the flexibility to really do a variety of stuff and see what works. But I think it's important to kind of spread that information of like you can do this job, you can do that, and esports is a market that you can apply to, and it's not kind of this like mystery thing in the corner. Oh, some people get to do esports, but there's a lot of esports
You can
jobs.
be an accountant and do any.
Yeah,
It can
like
literally be
everything.
There's so many different options. Like it's kind
Yeah.
of unreal. You
and
don't
when
like
you look at
it's
it as a
insane.
business, it's all the business jobs.
Mm,
Yeah.
Like to run the league, it takes every kind of job that there is,
mm,
you know? And I think that's the coolest part is that like we all get together over a shared common interest,
hmm
but we all have very different backgrounds.
right. And I think that's I'm grateful for because I mainly play Valorant and I play a little bit of Overwatch, and in both games I've noticed an increase in female players. And I think it's because the way those games are kind of marketed is more towards like everyone and less like specifically men or specifically women.
Hmm.
And that just builds such a better kind of environment, and it has definitely, in my opinion, really increased the amount of women in esports
Absolutely.
because it just makes it more accessible to us, more kind of like, oh, we see something that we can relate to, like we talked about before, and that
Hmm.
we see other people here, so we should be able to do it as well. And I think that's been really cool because then I see people like a lot of girls come into that iLab all the time to play games during our open hours, which I think is awesome because you actually get to see these people physically.
Hmm.
Totally.
And also, I've just been able to run into way more women the past 2 years in video games than ever before. And it makes me feel so good because I have a lot of guy friends and I love talking to them. They're like the coolest. I love playing with them. But there's something about having more women that you're friends with that have the same interest of esports with you just is like
It hits a
it's
little
just
different.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. It's so cool and yeah, I find it really meaningful.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful that we have so many women working in esports as well.
Yeah.
It's like funny too, like the Madeline, you were just saying like, seeing people play, like seeing women play and things like that. I'll be playing a game of Overwatch and I'll be so hesitant to say anything into voice chat. But the second I hear somebody that like has a more, feminine sounding voice or
Mm.
sounds less like they're gonna scream at me because I sound a little bit more feminine, I'll be like, hey. And then all of a sudden, like we have this connection, like we have this bond, and like we're like, oh, you're playing too? Awesome. Great. This is amazing. Like
Yeah.
you just click with people and you see more of that now nowadays, at least knock on wood in my personal like games that I play, like I've noticed more so that people are less aggro, they're less mean, they're less toxic. Of course, you're always going to get that person that
Mm.
comes into your voice chat that screams every mean word to you under the sun. But I have thankfully seen a lot more people that are willing to step up. I've seen a lot more men, women, all different kinds of gendered people be like, "Hey, stop. Like, why? Like, just stop talking. Like, don't be mean to people. Just like we said earlier, like just be kind."
Yeah, toxicity is really gross, to be
Yeah.
honest, and it it's not just like we see it a lot against women, and it definitely sucks. But it's also I've noticed how toxic men are towards each other as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it can be really gross when you're
Mhm.
with friends and you're kind of making fun of each other and stuff like that and like whatever. I think that's fine, but there are some times where I'm just like why is the culture like this? And why do people think this is okay if they do you really like get enjoyment out of that? Are you really happy doing that? Which is like probably a topic we could talk about forever because it
Oh,
is a whole
forever.
deep dive. But I realized how yes, women get a lot of harassment in games. That's just a statement. It's a
Mhm.
fact. And we kind of deal with it more obviously, but there is this underlying issue with toxicity in games. And you're kind of, like you said, why can't people just not do this? Why can't they be
Yeah.
nice?
It is, and the thing is too, like, exactly like you said, like it's everybody faces any kind of toxicity. You could be doing everything right. Like there's like a video that was a famous like viral video going around of like this pro player in, I don't remember what exact game it was, but he was a pro player in a game. Sarah, I think we watched that together.
We did.
A pro player in a game goes into a competitive game and has like a voice changer where it makes their voice sound a little bit more feminine sounding.
Mhm.
And even though this player was like the fragging out of his mind, was top of the leaderboard, they won the game, he was still getting harassed. And it kind of like opened this player's eyes up to like, oh, it really just doesn't matter. Like there's just some
Yep.
people out there and obviously, of course, like even if you're bottom of the leaderboard, you haven't gotten a single kill, you're not doing anything, Sarah. To point
No,
to
me too,
yourself.
Sarah. High five. It's just how it
Doesn't
be.
matter. Yeah, like that shouldn't be any reason for anybody to be toxic with you. You never know who's behind the screen or who's behind the monitor. Like it's toxicity in games, I think, is the one thing across the board. If we can move away from that and, friendly banter, of course, is fine. I think the occasional like even between like teams that we see in like a competitive level, I think, up to a certain point, banter is great. Banter is hysterical. It could really
Mm,
cause for a narrative for a certain story for certain teams. But when it's just like a random scrim or a random lobby at 1 a.m. and somebody's screaming at somebody else because they haven't gotten a kill, what are we doing? Like,
yeah.
where are we?
Ask yourself, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Just do
This
it.
ain't it. No.
Yeah, exactly. I think as we're coming to like the last few minutes, I did want to ask you guys if you had any kind of advice for potential college students that want to go into esports or any kind of things that you've learned so far over your time in like the job industry or even during college.
For me, I think that my biggest piece of advice is to understand your worth. Like after you've graduated and you're trying to get into esports and maybe you're finding a bunch of volunteer jobs, understand that at a certain point, you're selling yourself for a career and you're worth being paid for it. You know, don't let people take advantage of you because of an opportunity. You know, oh, well, the exposure. Oh, well, you'll get to network. Like, well, I'm still doing a job. And like, make sure that you own your self worth in those moments. Whether the exposure is great, like, I've done stuff that I've gotten paid very little for, but I made sure I got paid, you know, and because that makes it your career instead of just your hobby, you know, like really understanding, like, I value myself, I value my time. And yes, this exposure is going to be great, but maybe there's something else where the exposure is smaller, but I'm getting paid. You know, it's something that like you have to keep investing in yourself. And part of that is making sure that you're not being taken advantage of.
I'd say sorry, that was really good. I'm trying to follow up with that. So hard. Whew.
It's like, wow.
It's like, oh man.
Sorry. Sorry.
um, I honestly, everything that Sarah said, I think that's super, super important is to know your worth, know your value. The other thing is too, like, if you want to do something, go for it. And I know that sounds very like just vague advice in general, but the way this scene is, so many opportunities pop up at any given point in time. There's so many, we've said ad nauseum so far. There are so many different avenues that if you want to get involved in esports, and if you're, let's say you're not the best person to speak on camera, you can't play the game very well. There's so many things that are available to you. There's so many people who this scene is small. It's large but small. There's so many people here who are willing to help you, willing to talk to you, willing to give you advice about anything. Just be, go for it. Just go for whatever you want to do. And if there's ever anybody that you ever want to look up to or talk to, like, just keep in mind the scene is small and you can always just talk to anybody. They'll have advice for you. Um, and just do what you can and follow your passion, honestly.
Thank you. Those were both really good. I didn't expect, like, I knew it was gonna be good, but I was like, wow. I'm taking that to heart. Oh my gosh.
We try.
Well,
We try.
yeah, we got through it. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, broadcast team, for our unexpected issue and resolving everything. Mainly Gun. We love him. I'm really appreciative of you guys coming here. I know you don't do this a lot, so it means the world to me and be excited to upload this to YouTube and everything. So I hope you guys all enjoyed watching and we'll see you later. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.